I did my university in Delhi, and then I got a job as a journalist immediately after. It was the early 2000s. The city was transforming very fast from this sort of sleepy, sedate city. Because of the economy had changed, the economic system had changed in the 90s from a socialist model to a capitalist one. And so there was a lot of money flowing in, global capital companies. So there were new ideas, opportunities. And suddenly, as a correspondent for a news magazine, I was asked to document the changing city. Reports on, the new metro line, because we suddenly got metro, or go to the first bowling alley we've ever had in Delhi, or the first mall and multiplex. So there was a time of great change. And I spent a lot of time just driving in Delhi in my car for my job, but just talking to all kinds of people. And then at night I would party. I had very wealthy friends that I had made when I was in school. This was a time of change. So these families that were quite wealthy earlier were suddenly, a lot of these families became super wealthy. So I had this kind of like dual life: in the day, driving around, documenting the city, talking to people, listening to different stories, and then at night it was invited to private mansions and having parties. And those years, I often did not realize that I was going to become a novelist, but in somewhere in my subconscious, I thought I could use, obviously, those years. I was probably making mental notes. Years later, when I thought about writing a Delhi novel, and a novel about the Delhi rich became a novel about inequality, and specifically with the character of Ajay, because Sunny is based upon people that I've grown up with, sort of a composite of different men that I've grown up with. And then Neda is partially based on me, though I never had that kind of address. I'm from a more conservative family. She comes from a very intellectual bohemian family. So Ajay was the character that came last, and when he came was when I found my novel. So I was traveling in the mountains. I was staying in a guest house, and I met a young boy who inspired the character, at least the young boy, for Ajay. It was after my years in Delhi as a journalist. I'd already moved by that time to Goa, changed my life around. And I used to travel with my husband. It was like very unstructured travel, where we would go basically reviewing hotels for a website. But it was just kind of a way to travel and make some money as well. He's a photographer, and we were in the Himalayas. We staying in a small guest house where we met this young boy. And he had this story of loss. He had been sent off to work to pay off some family debts. Despite living alone, despite not having his family around, he was full of hope for the future. I remember at that point of time thinking of combining this young boy's story with the stories of the young men I would see working in the private mansions in Delhi, especially late at night during these raucous, extravagant parties. I was very interested in, exploring this sort of the clash of old money, or at least culture, an intellectual elite, which was represented by Neda's family and Neda, and how their power was being eclipsed by the new money that was coming in, and specifically that kind of new money which was represented by Sunny and his family. Amnesiac about how I write. It's very instinctive. I kind of play around with different styles and tones. Some because I think Ajay's story or Ajay's life demanded a more romantic, at least in the beginning. You have him, so you're full of hope for this character. You're full of hope for this world. But later on, it starts to unravel. Especially when you come to Sunny's section, and I wanted that to be reflected in the writing. So. I work with intent, but also there's also like an unconscious impulse or an instinct that takes over, and I work with what feels right. Everyone always asks me, isn't it amazing? And I'm like, well, okay. So when I got in 2019, when I had an agent in LA and he started to shop the manuscript around and people were interested, we were able to leverage that interest into a place where I had a lot of control. And my husband is a screenwriter, so we could work on it together. But of course, you're still working in collaboration with executives and producers, and they have an idea of how this should, unfold. The story should be told. You have your own idea, because it's very, I think, difficult to separate yourself from the world because you've created it and the characters. So now I'm trying to bring in more like Indians. I think really important not to lose the authenticity of the world and the characters. You can change other things around, but for me, I wouldn't like to see this world being inauthentically represented, especially maybe if it's being done for a Western audience. I subscribe to the New York Review of Books, which is not the New York Times. It's a literary magazine, New York Review of Books, and a writer, wrote an essay on cremation, crematoria, and him and his work, and it just I remember reading it and thinking, my God, this is like, the themes are in a way similar to Age of Vice, and I would love to see how this is executed. I'm shocked that he's not so well known outside, because he's so good. I've been telling everyone to read him in America. Two really good non-fiction books by Indian writers. One is When Crime Pays by Milan Vaishnav, which explores the relationship between crime and politics in India. So it was, a very good book for me personally, because I was studying all that. So the world is set there. And another book, which is by a journalist, is called Feast of Vultures, again, which looks at democracy and how it's been corrupted, by Josie Joseph. And books that have just informed me and I love, just absolutely love, is 2666 by Bolaño, which is a masterpiece, especially the way, it kind of taught me that you can do so much with the novel. Svetlana Alexievich's Secondhand Time, just the way she gets like this powerful symphony of voices. And again, it's the exploration of the breakup of the Soviet Union. And, I was also looking at these powerful moments in India and how you could, work your way from there in a fictional setting, but still. I also love books by Patricia Highsmith and Graham Greene for thrillers, and other writers like Didion and Janet Malcolm, Patrick Modiano, Rachel Cusk. So yeah, just lots of people.